Hey there, my name is Jabin Shah, and in this video, we're going to talk about homework 2 for DevOps, and that would be for configuration management. And let's see what the homework is about. In this homework, I'll cover the basics of setting up a simple configuration server, enabling SSH access, and using Ansible to configure a simple web server to run Mattermost and MySQL on the target machine. And we would do this in an automated way to install the Ubuntu server, install the MySQL database, Mattermost, and configure the Mattermost all in an automated way using Ansible. So before we begin, there are a few prerequisites. I would want you to make sure that you have VirtualBox installed on your machine and that it is VirtualBox 5.2 and not the newest version, that is VirtualBox 6.0. Also make sure that you have Baker installed on your machine, and just make sure that you pass all the checks, and especially Baker and VBox Manage. And if you do not have OpUnit, I would recommend you to download OpUnit using or install OpUnit using this command. I've divided them into 3 easy steps, and that would be baking, cloning, and deploying. So in baking, we are essentially setting up 2 servers. One would be the Ansible server, which would act as the configuration server, and the other is the Mattermost server, which would act as the target machine where we would install MySQL and Mattermost. So first I would want you to clone a repository in the desired folder and then cd into it. Now if you have a look, that we have a setupservers.sh file, as in this would run baker bake to start the respective servers to give you the prompts, and it would also generate the private and public key in this repo. So I would copy this and run sh setupservers.sh, and it would ask for my password. I would enter it, and now as you can see over here, there are currently no virtual machines running, and now we are creating a virtual machine called Ansible server. So as you can see, the setting up of the servers is completed, and we have 2 servers or 2 VMs, Baker VMs, that have been set up. One is the Ansible server, which is running on port 2002, and the other is web server, which is running on port 2003. I've also set up the shell script in such a way that it would also generate public and private RSA keys. So you would just have to cd into this to have a look at the private and the public key. So now we need to copy the private and the public key onto the server. On Mac, you can just use pb copy, copy the public key into the buffer, and then you can paste it into the Mattermost server. And then sudo baker ssh to SSH into the Mattermost server, which is essentially the web server on which we would be running the MySQL and Mattermost server. We can now directly go into cd Ansible servers to copy the private key into the Ansible server. So before we do that, I would want to copy private key so that we can paste it into the Ansible server, so that we can SSH from the configuration server onto the target machine. Now that we've done that, you would also want to make sure that the key is not readable by others. Now we move on to the second step, that is cloning again. Just make sure that you run this step so that you're sure that you have the latest version of Ansible playbook, and if not, you can run sh install ansible sh once you have cloned this repository back into your Ansible server. So now that we've done that, we have the following structure to the repository. We have the server file, in which we have the Ansible server with the Baker file and the Mattermost server with the Baker file. Then we have the inventory file that would be used to SSH into the Mattermost server from the Ansible server. We have few resources for this repository, and then we have the roles, and we have the site.yaml file, which would essentially be running MySQL and then be running Mattermost. So now that we have cloned into it, we need to just run one command to start the configuration process, and that is sudo ansible playbook um, inventory and then the site YAML file. Once there, if I just click here, it would ask whether or not you want to continue connecting, and you would say yes. So before I fast forward and it is running, I would want to go to the website to make sure that we cannot connect. So finally, the tasks have completed and the Mattermost service has been started. So if we reload this page, we should be getting the Mattermost page now being accessible to us. And sign in. We can see that um, we are the admin and we can now go to the system console. The good thing is when we pass in the Mattermost templates, we pass in a config.json file, which would help us to configure the Mattermost services. So if we want to change from send email notification, so we can set a boolean value to it, feedback name, and all these values can be set. And if we see right now, if we go into email, we see that um, for notifications, we see that email notifications have been enabled. By default, it is disabled. And we can see that the notification display name is Jane Shah, the email address, and demo, the SMTP port, and everything has been set up for us automatically. If you have a look at the file storage, we see that it is by default given a local file system, that is data, which has been configured by us with the Ansible itself. Also, the site URL has been set. So now if we have a look, we have a total of 2 teams that have been deployed. One was done manually and the other was through the Ansible script. Here you can see that 2 teams indeed have been created. So if we go to the web page, we can see that a team has been indeed deployed and it's already in. If we have more people in the team, we would be able to communicate with this. So that's about it. Thank you so much. Have a good day.